Okay, it is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, and this is for Science of Cooking. So our final unit of the semester is on food and the senses. So what we started talking about yesterday was our sense of taste, right? So salty, sweet, bitter, sour, umami, which is the fifth taste, which we're going to be exploring more next week as well. So today, because of that, we're going to be making a balsamic vinaigrette that is going to play on all of those flavor profiles. So it's going to have a combination of salty, sweet, bitter, sour, and some umami to go in it as well. So we're going to do a balsamic vinaigrette, and I'm going to show you a simple green salad to go with this that'll also help enhance those flavors as we go through. So there's some things that we need to do for basic dressing making, right? So one, we need a bowl. So a medium-sized bowl, and you want to have a good balloon type whisk, something that's easy to whisk that fits well into the bowl, right? So we've got that here. And we're going to be starting off with our sour, right? So we're going to add a lot of flavor components into our dressing, and we're going to finish with the oil, okay? We're going to be adding that in slowly at the end, because what we're trying to do with a vinaigrette is create an emulsion, right? So typically if you think of oil and water, right, they stay separate layers. We're trying to create it so that it blends together and it fuses, okay? It will be a temporary emulsion. Over time, it will separate, but it is a dressing that you can put in a container, shake it really well, and it will come right back together. So we're going to start off with our balsamic vinegar, and this is just a store brand vinegar. You can go expensive if you like, right? This is one from Italy, right? Balsamic vinegar is going to give it a lot of flavor, has a lot of intensity. This is going to be our sour component, right? So if you've ever tried straight vinegar out of the bottle, it is very sour, okay? So we're going to be adding our vinegar first. So when you're doing a basic vinaigrette, it is a 3-to-1 ratio. So 1 part vinegar, 3 parts oil, okay, to get that flavor. So you could change this out if you're making a different kind of dressing, rice wine vinegar. You could do apple cider vinegar, things like that, okay? So we're going to be starting off with a 1/2 cup of our balsamic vinegar. And you're going to see by the color of this, it's really dark and beautiful, right? And that's going to give us a really nice color to our dressing. Balsamic dressing does have a nice shade of deep brown tones. You want to make sure that you're measuring these things at eye level, right? So come right down and make sure that you're measuring them at eye level. So we're going to start with our vinegar in the bowl. So this is a 1/2 cup of that balsamic vinegar. And then we're going to add in our sweet component. So for the sweet for this, today we're going to use sugar. So just a regular white granulated sugar. You could also sub out for honey, right? The advantage of making your own dressing is you control the ingredients going in, what you can have, what you can't have, if you're trying to cut back on sugars, things like that. So we're just going to use the white sugar. You can use a brown sugar, maple syrup, honey, things like that. But we want to get the sugar in now so we can get that dissolved, okay? So we want to whisk these things throughout as we're adding them in. We don't want little bits of sugar that are not dissolved, right? We don't want that graininess kind of texture to our dressing. So we've got our sour and we've got our sweet. So our balsamic and our sugar. Okay. Then we're going to add in our salty, right? So some kosher salt. You could use sea salt as well. Regular table salt is also fine. We're going to do just 1/4 teaspoon, so 1/4 of a teaspoon of our kosher salt. Right, add that in. Same thing, we want that to get dissolved into that liquid. We don't want little bits of salt left behind. So stir well after each ingredient. We're going to be mixing a lot. You can't really overmix a dressing, which is nice. Okay, we're going to be using some fresh ground black pepper. So about 1/2 teaspoon worth. So it's going to be about 20 turns on the pepper grinder, right? So don't be afraid to really put this in there, because this is going to make 2 cups of dressing total, so a pint. Okay, we want to get that 1/2 teaspoon. You could use pre-ground black pepper, but you're not going to get that same flavor intensity as when it's freshly ground. We want this to be a flavorful dressing, right? So that's one of our main seasoning components. Then for our spice, we're going to add in some dried thyme. Now, with dried spices, something to keep in mind, right, is that you use less of them when they're dried than when they're fresh, okay? But because they're dried, they've been sitting for a little while, things like that, we need to kind of break them up a little bit as we put it in to make sure that we're releasing those flavors, okay? So we're going to be using a half a teaspoon of thyme that I'm not going to put straight into the bowl. I'm going to put it into my hand instead. Right here. So with that dried thyme, I want to break that up as I'm adding it in, right? Because it is dry, we want to pinch this in our fingers, right? Just ever so gently, so that way we are releasing those flavors into our dressing, right? So I'm going to take that dried thyme and a little bit at a time and pinch and squeeze it in, right? So that is going to release the flavors by breaking up those pieces of the dried herb, right? You can also rub it between your hands. And it instantly releases that aroma of the herb, right? This will release flavor, you know, in its own as it sits, but this will help speed up that process by breaking that up in your fingertips when you add it in, okay? So like I said, so we've got our sour with our balsamic vinegar, our sweet with our sugar. We added our salty by adding kosher salt, a little pepper and thyme for seasoning. And now we're gonna add in our, right? And there are a lot of flavors that, you know, we eat that are bitter. So when you think bitter, you're like, why would you want to add that into the dressing? But coffee's bitter, chocolate's bitter, right? All things that we love. So we're going to be adding in some mustard as our bitter flavor, right? So our profile. Now I'm going to be using a Dijon mustard, but this is a country mustard, okay? And the difference of that is that you can still see some of the mustard seeds, right? It is not purely smooth. It's got a little bit of a coarse texture to it, but it's going to add a great flavor profile to everything. So we're going to add in a teaspoon and a half worth of our country Dijon mustard. And Dijon mustard is also made and produced with white wine in it. So it gives a lot of great flavor. And plus the color goes much better in dressing than that electric yellow mustard that we all tend to put on everything. So go with something a little bit more refined for your dressings, right? Now the mustard, like I said, is going to add our bitter component. But what it's also going to do is work as an emulsifier, right? So like I said, we want to have these things come together, right? That oil and water, those liquids. We want them to fuse together. So that mustard is going to help that process, help them bind together. Like I said, you can't overmix this dressing. Right? When you are whisking, keep the whisk touching the bottom of the bowl and the sides, scrape periodically, right? So that way it's not splashing if you stay touching the bottom the whole time. Okay? Now we're going to add in our olive oil. So we're going to need a lot. Like I said, this is a 3-to-1 ratio. So 1 part vinegar, 3 parts oil. We did a half a cup of vinegar. So we're going to do 1.5 cups of extra virgin olive oil. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't matter which olive oil you use in a recipe, but when it comes to dressing, that's when you usually want to have a lighter profile of your olive oil. So go with a bottle that says extra virgin olive oil on it this time, okay? So in this instance. Now with the olive oil, so this is a lot of oil to add in to our dressing. So we want to do this slowly so that we're incorporating this all together as one unified dressing. Okay? So when you're doing this, it's good to have it in something that you can pour easily and have your bowl and your whisk with your other hand at the same time. And you want to pour this in a slow stream so that you're slowly incorporating. And it will look at times like it's just not going to blend together. It just requires a lot of hand whisking. Right, and time. So take your time pouring this in slowly. Now, the advantage of making your own dressing is that you control the flavor, right? You also are controlling the ingredients, right? So there are no added preservatives in this. There's no ingredients that I can't pronounce. No high fructose corn syrup or artificial flavors or colorings. All right. It's just vinegar, oil, sugar, mustard, salt, pepper, and thyme. Very simple ingredients. Clean eating. If you've ever read the label on a bottle of salad dressing, you know what I mean. Next time, if you've got a bottle in the fridge, go take a peek at it and see how many ingredients you don't recognize in something that's supposed to just be a simple salad dressing, right? But they have to add lots of things to make it shelf stable. This dressing will last in your fridge for a few weeks, easily 2 to 3 weeks. Eat a lot of salad or go quicker than that. And so you will see that when I'm mixing this, like I said, I poured it in slowly, but you also notice that there's still a layer of oil that's not quite fully mixed in. So we're going to keep whisking. I find it helps to turn the bowl in the process, right, as you whisk. Like I said, keeping that whisk touching the bottom of the bowl so you're not splashing out all over the place. You don't want dressing on your ceiling. But what you'll start to see is that this starts to come together as a cohesive liquid. I can still see a little thin layer of oil on the top, so I'm going to keep whisking, right? Now, this dressing is best if you can make this ahead of time. So even if it's just a couple of hours before you're going to have it for a meal. So it gives the flavors time to meld together and for it to really kind of balance itself out. So we put a lot of strong flavors in this together. So it does help if you can let it sit for a little bit and kind of mellow. Right? But you can use it right away. It won't hurt. So now you can see that layer of oil is gone off the top edge. Okay. And it's starting to come together as a cohesive liquid. What you want to do is check, right? So take a spoon and look and see how it coats the back of the spoon, right? That's what we call nappe, right? So if it coats and it kind of sits and clings. But this is also when you want to taste, okay? Don't put something on your salad or use this much of something if you don't know how it tastes. Look for that flavor balance. Perfect. Right? Like I said, this will be even better after I let it sit for a little while. Right? This should be stored in the refrigerator, just like any other salad dressing after you open it. Okay? And you can't overmix it. You can also put this into a jar, which is what I'm going to do at the end, and give it a good shake before you use it the next time. You may see some separation of that oil and vinegar as it sits. That's perfectly normal after a few days. Just give it a good shake, whisk it again, and you'll be fine, right? So now you can see that dressing has come together. Like I said, this is great for salads. You can also drizzle this on top of some grilled or sauteed vegetables, fish, chicken. Balsamic plays really well with all of those savory meats and veggies. Okay. So we're going to do a simple salad today to go with all of our great flavors that we've got going, right? Our salt, sweet, bitter, sour. We also talked about umami. So balsamic vinegar is also umami, okay? We're going to add a little bit more after as well. So we're going to take a smaller bowl here just to build a little green salad with some tomatoes and some red onion. Now, for this, you want to use whatever lettuce you prefer. I like things like the spring mix, right? These are mixed greens that are full of vitamins, right? Rich, deep colors. So your spinaches and arugula and dandelion greens and things like that give a lot of flavor. But it also looks pretty too, right? You're not going to get a lot of vitamins out of something like an iceberg lettuce, which is what we tend to eat the most of. This is when they say, eating your greens, this is what they're talking about, right? So we're just going to take these and kick them up a little bit with a lot of that balsamic flavor. But I also want to add to my salad some little grape tomatoes. Now, there's nothing more annoying than getting a salad in the restaurant and you have the tomatoes in your salad and you have to try and stab them with your fork. So be courteous to your guests who are eating and just cut them, right? I'm going to slice these using a serrated knife. It's easy on the tomatoes, right? And then I'm going to do them lengthwise. They look pretty, but now they're also easier to eat. Okay? going to do a few of these. Now, tomatoes are also glutamate, so it's adding in umami as well. We've got a lot of bitterness with our greens, so we're still building on that flavor profile, right? So we're just going to toss those in. And then we're going to add in a little bit of red onion. Now, all I did with this was trim the top, the stem end of the onion. I have the root still intact here, so I don't want to break this apart because this is what's holding everything together. So all you need to do at this point is peel it. It makes it easier to peel when it's cut in half as well. Okay. Peel here to the trash. And now we're going to do some really nice thin slices. So the thing with salads is if you do things kind of haphazardly, right, you're not getting a great flavor profile because you're getting some small chunks of things and you're getting large chunks of things. So try to do your onion slices nice and thick. Keeping that, like I said, keeping that root intact. You want to slice it so that you have little rainbows, right? So you can see this rainbow end right here, which we talked about at the beginning of the year, okay? So remember with your knives, when you're holding your chef knife, so those 3 fingers on the handle, your thumb is up here on the back of the blade. This finger, your pointer finger, curved in on the other side, right? So you get nice balance. This hand, your opposite hand, claw shape, right? So keeping those fingertips tucked in and safe. So we're just going to come in and we're going to slice some real thin slices of onion. We don't need a lot, right? And this is what I was talking about, having something that's too chunky. We just want a little hint of onion flavor. We don't want onion to be the dominant flavor with giant chunks and pieces. So really thin, almost translucent slices. That's all you need. And these will soak up that balsamic vinegar super fast and become extra flavorful. You can also marinate your vegetables beforehand. So before you mix it with the greens, you could let your onions marinate in a little dressing and then toss everything together. So when it comes time to having your salads, you don't want to put the dressing on in advance because then everything gets kind of soggy and wilted. So you can have things prepared like this beforehand, have your salad ready to go, keep it chilled in the fridge, then toss your dressing on at the last minute just before you're going to eat it. Okay, and that'll stop it from getting soggy. All your greens will stay nice and crisp. So we've got our big bowl of dressing. Like I said, and this makes, see in size comparison, right? 2 cups of dressing, so a pint. And you'll notice on the recipe that's attached in your Google Classroom that this says half recipe. So normally, if I'm doing this at school in the restaurant and things, I will make this in a quart-size container, right? Because it's easier to make a larger batch than many small batches. Okay, so we're just giving this another good whisk to make sure everything's well blended. And we're going to add some of our dressing to our salad. So a little ladle is fine. You don't need a ton of dressing, okay? And the idea with salads, very American, is that we just throw the dressing on top in big glops. We put it on the side in a little plastic cup. When you travel around the world, you'll see that other countries do not do that. It's always tossed with the dressing because you want to make sure that that flavor is infused throughout, right? So nice little drizzle, little pair of tongs, and just give everything a light toss. One away there. Like I said, you could marinate your vegetables beforehand in the dressing, especially your onions. You just want to make sure everything's well coated. Okay? And then you could transfer it to another plate, which is what we're going to do here. Show you how to plate this up. Forward. So when you're plating something as simple as a salad, right, you can still make it look fancy, right? There's no reason why you can't make it feel like you're dining out, right? Even though we've been eating a lot more at home, right? Create a little height in the center of your plate. Try to put the greens down first. Some of our onions here, right? And then we're going to add our tomatoes, scatter them around. That'll give us some color throughout. Right. So we've got our very, our red onions, which are actually a little bit more in the purple family, right? A little hint of white. We've got our red of our tomatoes. A little restaurant trick, remember always, keep the edges of your plates clean. So if you get a little something, a little clean towel just to wipe that off. Now, our last flavor component we're going to add that is also umami is, right, to get that savory profile, is some grated fresh Parmesan cheese. You don't need a lot. Don't use the stuff out of the shaker can. Use some real cheese. Right? Just give it a nice punch of flavor on the top. Right? So this gives us flavor, gives us color, gives us balance, right? Like I said, so we've got all of our flavor components combined, our salty, sweet, sour, the bitter, the umami, right? So even though it's just a salad, it's still flavor balance, right? It's got a beautiful profile when you put it. Take this, put a little, grilled chicken or a little grilled fish on top. Perfect dinner salad, right? Like I said, you can also use the balsamic dressing just to go on some grilled veggies or fish or chicken. Okay, it can be something that doesn't have to be just for salads. It can be used in your repertoire, for many meals over a couple weeks' time. You can keep mixing it up. So that's our recipe for today. Like I said, a balsamic vinaigrette. That is a half recipe. You can make the larger recipe, right? What I'm going to do with this now is throw this into, you guys know I like my mason jars, right? So I've got my little mason jar here. I'm going to pour that in. You could use an old, washed out pasta sauce jar or a mayonnaise jar, something with a nice tight fitting lid. Like I said, because the emulsion may separate over time, especially after a few days. So you want it in some sort of container where you can just give it a good quick shake to bring all those flavor components back together. Okay. So we've got our dressing there. And we're just going to put our lid on. All right. And now we'll be able to shake this. So this way now, just like we do with our cocoa and granola and things, that's why I like clear containers. And then I remember what's in the fridge by having in a clear jar. So like I said, reuse some jars that you might have from things like mayonnaise and stuff. Wash them really good. Save them. Keep a few, canning jars around the house. That way for stuff like this, you can put it in the fridge. And then you won't forget about it if it's in a nice container and you can see what the contents are. Okay, so that's our recipe for today. So balsamic vinaigrette, simple salad, dressing that you can use, for a few weeks time. It'll sit in the fridge a good 2 to 3 weeks. Like I said, just remember to give it a good shake before the next time you use it to make sure everything's still well blended and hasn't settled. And that's it. Hopefully it's something that you guys can try at home sometime soon.